Good morning, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. And we are going to be discussing this morning a very important topical matter. Now, this morning, I am going to be talking about the commercialization of Bob Marley, right? The mainstream marketing or the mainstream commercialization of Bob Marley. Now, one of the things that I've always told you on this platform is that our global elites, particularly those who are interested in a countercultural revolution, have been indoctrinating us for a very long time, right? And if they can sell your eyes, if your eyes are saleable, if your nose is saleable, if your hands are saleable, then they are going to sell them, right? Because that is how it is sold. And you definitely will buy them, right? Because what they do, they use a lot of psychological tactics that you are not even aware of. And then you are brainwashed, and then you say, yes, I love those eyes, even though your eyes might be prettier than mine, right? It means, therefore, that you have to wear my eyes because the people in the mainstream industry, the mainstream media, have convinced you that you need to wear my eyes. It's a very, very serious situation. When we look at the level of what you call it now, artificial indoctrination, and this indoctrinating us into accepting that which is spurious, that which is false, it really boggles the mind. When I see so many people, particularly among females, I must say, wearing false hair, false nails. And I'm not saying that perhaps you might not, it might not be necessary. If it is necessary, then sometimes it might be necessary. But in most cases, you know that it is not necessary to be wearing false nails. It is not necessary to be wearing false, you know, eyelashes and whatever you're wearing. It boggles the mind. And this is a big industry. And people invest so much money into doing that. You know, some of these ladies, and they have to do their nails. I don't know how their men keep up with them on these nails. And how, ladies, how are you able to even maintain a sense of hygiene with those very long nails? I would not want to drink water from some of you. I really would not want to drink a glass of water from some of you, because how do you even clean your bodies with those very long nails? It is impossible. But guess what? It's sold to you, and it's sold to you as being attractive, and you must follow it because most of the ladies are doing it. So you have to do it also. And this is what is happening to our world. We just lined up as controlled animals to the slaughter, ready to be slaughtered by these global elites. And this is a painful sight to watch by those of us who have not decided to be indoctrinated. Because you can make a decision too if you want to, but you've got to put in the research and to put in the requisite thinking so that you can be able to discern what is happening around you. Because what is happening around you and what you see on the media or looking and seeing on the road are very, very distinct matters. And you've got to understand the agenda. I know for Jamaicans, for example, that Bob Marley represents this great national, icon. He's a great national treasure. And people see him as iconic. And from a worldly perspective and from the perspective of an indoctrinated person, yes, he is. But if you want to understand, or if you understand, I should say, the way in which this world functions and the agenda, Bob Marley will not become a national, will not be to you a national treasure, right? Because Bob Marley had a lot of flaws. And I'm not suggesting here that, national heroes have to be flawless people, because no, but we're talking about the fact that there are certain values that glue society together. And if we do not have those values, then our societies are not going to be held together. And one of the characteristic of a healthy society is our healthy families. And we know that Bob just did not have a healthy family. And if you think a healthy family is only by, just by his providing financially for his children, because some of you are going to say that, yes, but he had a lot of children with lots of different women, but he provided for his children. Healthy relationships and healthy families mean much more than money. I did say to you that the United States, right, is touted as being the richest country in the Western Hemisphere, with the largest economy in the Western Hemisphere, right? But when we look at the fact, I did tell you, based on research, and this is there in the public domain, that 70% of Americans are on antidepressant drugs because they're depressed. Even though when you look at the average man in America, he or she has much more than what the average man or woman has in what we deem to be the third world. But it does not make them happy because there are certain values you need to have that will bring joy. And the first one is that you have to have a relationship with God, your creator, the person who created you. And that is what Bob Marley was looking. Give him his credit. Bob Marley was looking for that spiritual truth and for that spiritual connection, which he never had. But he had, well, he chose a certain spiritual connection with another sort of spirit that did not make him happy, did not give him the peace that he needed. And that's why he had to be going around with lots of women. I was listening to a brief documentary yesterday on Rita Marley, speaking about her relationship with Bob Marley. And she mentioned that she was just a side chick, if you will, my words. And that sometimes she had to go to his room to evict some of these women because Bob could not control the number of women that were seeking his attention and seeking to be with him because he was this superstar. And I'm not talking about ordinary women, women from the lower stratum, of society. I'm talking about very well-educated and so-called well-cultured women who were just trying to be with Bob. I saw Sydney Breakspear. Sydney Breakspear is is a former Miss Jamaica World. She won the Miss World competition in 1976, right? And with all of that fame that she had back then, of course, that's going to wither away after a while. But she says in her, interviews, in all the interviews I've watched with Sydney, so far, she has mentioned that she does not care that she was with Bob, even though she was in an extramarital affair with the man. She's saying that, how would you, or would any woman, referring to women, not, feel to be around a man that was so famous and that was one of the most famous persons to come out of Jamaica, maybe for the next 100 years. She said that it is really, she feels really esteemed to have been engaged in an extramarital relationship with a man. Very eloquent woman, very, should I say, she's living a prosperous life. But what sort of value is that, Sydney, that you think that because Bob Marley was as famous and remains to be, even though he's dead, to be the superstar, this rock star of the world, and the Jamaican rock star specifically, that you had to be with him? So what if every woman was to say that same thing? Have you thought about the pain, the suffering, Sydney, that it brought to the family, to Bob Marley's family, immediate family, to Rita, who was his wife? Have you thought about that it brought significant pain, psychological, emotional pain to the woman? And you also are a woman, so you should understand that. And would you want Sydney Breakspear to share your man? And I'm not saying now that we are going to be spilling water over what has passed already, because that is already history. It has passed. But Sydney Breakspear still continues, and she's not looking back and saying that, I made a mistake here. I should not have done it, even though I've produced or we, between she and Bob, they produced a proud son, Damian Marley, who is doing well in his career, right? And who has passed the worst. Yeah, she can be proud of that, but you can't be proud of the fact that the manner in which that child came about, right? Because there are things in our lives that we have to be embarrassed about. Yes, things might come, just like a woman being raped. Yes, that woman might keep the child, right? And that child might come to be somebody very important and a productive citizen of that particular society. But it doesn't mean that woman is happy with the manner in which the child was born. You're not going to celebrate that. You're going to celebrate his life. You're going to celebrate and you will say that it is really, really a sad thing that the child had to come through that process, right? But what we're having in our society right now, we're celebrating people and their weaknesses. We are glorifying the weaknesses of our superstars, including the Bob Marleys and the Sydney Breakspears, and all of these people that we tend to look up to. And if you call their names, it's almost like you are committing the unpardonable sin. Because as far as I'm concerned in our society right now, because our society has been turned upside down, by the way, and you can say anything about God, and God is our creator, and he is the all-powerful being, but you can say anything about him and his word and get away with it. But if you dare say anything about these so-called rock stars, be they prime ministers, presidents, musical entertainers, actors, actresses, sports personalities, if you dare say anything about these people, you must be prepared to die, or you will be taken to the stake to be slaughtered. This is the world that we are living in and that we have to be aware of. Another thing that I have been mulling about is the fact that Black people tend to talk about Blackness every day, Blackness, and they were kings and queens in Africa and all this nonsense. Because how can everybody be king and queen in Africa? That's impossible, right? Even in Europe, where they were a little bit, talk about equity after the Protestant Reformation, they didn't have any equality. And even in America, I have said on many occasions that it's the best political constitution that has ever been written by human beings. And they have never had the equality that is outlined in that constitution, in the US Constitution, that is. They don't have it. So how do you think that back in Africa, in ancient times, that we had that sort of equality where all of us were kings and queens? That is nonsense. It's fable, right? But we still continue to embrace it. And everything is Black. Oh, the Black Jew. Everything is Black. All right? Everything that was civilized in ancient times was Black. And what is so special to be a Jew? Yes, to be a spiritual Jew, that is something special. But to be connected to physical Israel, nothing special about it, because they're rebellious people. And if you read the Bible, you will see that God eventually had to spew them out of his mouth, literally spew them out of his mouth, because they were despicable, a despicable nation, right? Because of their continuous rebellion against him. And you sit there and you talk about you're being, the original Jew was Black. Now, what does that mean? What does it even mean to be Black? Particularly in the Americas, where we're all hybridized people in this Americas, right? African with Asians, Asians with whites, whites with Blacks. We're all hybridized features. It would really surprise me if any of us is pure in this Americas. We're not. So many years, centuries, I should say, of having lived together. We're all intermixed. And if you read the Bible, we came from one parents, from one blood. God made all the nations to dwell on this world. So there's no pure this and pure that. Even our cultures are not pure anymore, right? Because they're all and perhaps have never been pure. Because we've always had a history of migration, and this culture always impacts on the other culture and stuff like that, right? When you look at the languages, for example, you see the connection and the words coming from that particular language. Look at the difference between Portuguese and Spanish. And you see where Spain and Portugal were at one time one country, right? And you see the connection of the words, right? You look at the United States of America, you see the different linguistic groups going there, and you see where their language and expressions are seeped years ago into the lingua franca of the United States. Because that is what human migration and human relation have always been. So to talk about this white, what does it mean to be white? What does it mean to be black? Absolutely nothing. But the fact of the matter is that the global elite would like to indoctrinate you and I so that we can become divided over nonsensical issues and matters. And while we are distracted from the substantive issues that we should be talking about and that we should be fighting against, which is the preservation of our humanity, because that's what we are. We're just humans on this earth, right? But we don't want to talk about these things. We want to talk about black and white. You know, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and he was saying, Trump is racist. Trump is racist. How can you not see that Trump is racist? And I'm saying, what evidence do you have that Trump is racist? And I'm not pro-Trump. And I don't even like a lot of Trump's behavior. Just like I don't like a lot of the behavior of Obama's and the Clintons, right? Because they were presidents, former presidents of a military-industrial complex that have killed many innocent lives, right? Why don't you talk about Biden is racist when you see the number of people killed that you call brown people in Palestine? Why isn't he racist? Why isn't that the diet of mainstream news today that Biden's racist for doing bad? Right? Because you have been fed with a certain perspective, with a certain narrative, and you think that is true. And Trump might be racist, yes, but so might you also be racist. Right? Because if you're saying that the man is racist, you've never had a relationship with him, you can't pinpoint a certain evidence. Just all you can say is what the media have been saying to you, that he's racist, he's narcissistic, he's this, and you say the same thing. You walk around thinking that that is true, right? And he might be, but you should be able to say this is what he has done. That is different from what others have done. And if you look carefully at the situation, you will see that he did nothing that the others did not do or have not done. But because you're so mesmerized, because you're so hypnotized by what you see and hear on the mainstream media, you can't think for yourselves. And he's, to you, phenotypically white, even though whiteness doesn't mean anything, it's also a religion, just like blackness. Whiteness is also another religion, just like you have blackness is a religion, because nobody's black and nobody's white. But you believe in this sort of nonsense because you have been indoctrinated into believing that. You have faith in a system that has told you that, even though the evidence is not there. There's no scientific evidence. There's absolutely no cultural evidence of a black or white person. right? What you have are nation states and cultural, you know, dynamics. And as far as I'm concerned, you have an American culture, you have a British culture, you have an Italian culture, you have a Spanish culture, you have a Honduran culture, etc., etc., etc. Right? But we are in these and we're nitpicking at these nonsensical topics, and the global elites are carrying on with the show unperturbed and unbothered by us. And that is why we're moving rapidly into a slave life, into a totalitarian society. Right? Because we love it. We love to be slaves. Black, white, whatever you call yourselves, Asian, we love to be slaves. Humanity loves to be slaves. They love to have a paternal figure over them, telling them how they should behave and what they should believe in. And the God who we should serve, no, we don't want him. That's what the Israelites did, right? The God who they should have as king, who brought them out of Egypt, who brought them out of the land of slavery, they said, we don't want him to be our king. We want a slave to be over us and to be our king. And by slave, I meant at the time, yes, that person was royalty, but these people are not. All human beings are enslaved to the God of this world, which is the devil. We're all enslaved to that particular God and his demons. And that's why we have vices that we need to get rid of. But let's get back now on track to what we're seeing, the commercialization of Bob, right? Now, everything has been commercialized in our world right now. Health, education, religion, spirituality. Let me say it again, spirituality, because some of you say, oh, I'm not religious, I am spiritual. Well, even your spirituality rather, has been commercialized and is being marketed to the world. And that is why we have so great divisions in the world, because my spirituality is better than yours. My African spirituality is superior to European spirituality or Asian spirituality, because we were the first people in the world. Black people were the first people in the world. So it makes us superior. Right? It makes us superior because we were the first inhabitants of this world. Well, I have news for you. But let's get back to the commercialization. Let's look at some, let's open up the BBC paper and see what they are saying here about Bob. Right, so we see here with the BBC, and this article was published on November 19th, 2014, so a while back, right, almost 10 years ago, this article was published in the BBC. And it says, Bob Marley family launches first world cannabis brand. So here, the family of the late Jamaican reggae artist Bob Marley has launched what they describe as the world's first global cannabis brand. It will be called Marley Natural and be used to sell cannabis-infused lotions, creams, and various accessories. So his name is going to be linked to those accessories, lotions, creams, and other things. The new brand is being developed with Privateer Holdings based in Washington State, stressing the life and legacy of Jamaica's greatest cultural export. So this is where it's going to be centered, not in Jamaica, but in the United States of America. And I'm sure those owners are what you call white people that control the legacy of Bob Marley. It is intended to be sold in the US and possibly worldwide from next year. Now, listen to what his daughter is saying. Bob Marley's daughter said, Marley said her father would welcome the move. My dad would be so happy to see people understanding the healing power of her, she said. So that is what it's all about. Now, they're saying that we don't know if that would be true. Um, it was just a natural fit between Bob Marley and this product. You know, if you were to look for the most famous human being who ever walked the face of the earth related to cannabis, it would be Bob Marley. And the question that I would like to ask his daughter and the world in general, those who are supporting this cannabis agenda, right? If it could not heal him when he had, what was it, melanoma cancer? He was suffering from that rare cancer, right? But the herb could not heal him, right? This is the healing power of the herb. Now, why wasn't he healed at the time? You know, something to think about. And Bob also had lots of other psychological problems. Why wasn't he healed? Why was he in this state of being high all the time? Watch his interviews online, and you'll see where he's just constantly high, or he was at the time. And lots of times what he was saying didn't make any sense. He was just talking, he was just speaking gibberish. That's exactly what he was doing. But to you, he is a hero, right? And I understand that, right? Because you have been told to see him as a hero. Now, let's go now to BBC again. And this article was written, let me see if I can make it bigger, the font bigger, so that you can view it much better. And this was written by Ian Youngs. And the article was written on Wednesday, 11th of February, 2009. So a long time ago, you know, over 10 so years ago. What, 14? Many years, 14 years, yeah, 14 thereabout. Bob Marley's drinks, luggage, stationery, hotels, and video games could soon appear after the late reggae star's family struck a merchandise deal. We're open to licensing just about anything. We're open to licensing just about anything, said the late reggae icon's daughter, Sedella. But she added, if it is not right, we will not do it. But do you know that they were trying to market also alcohol and alcoholic beverage, and Bob Marley did not partake of any alcoholic beverage. He just did not believe that alcohol should be drunk, should be used, which was good, right? One of the good things that we can say about him is that he did not drink, but his other vice was the use of marijuana, which was equally another form of drug, which drugged his mind. And a lot of times when he was doing his interview, he was not as clear-eyed, and his mind was not clear to be able to render a much more intelligent and coherent, discussion. Now, headphones, snowboards, shoes, musical instruments, and electronics are on a list of other products that will be developed in a major expansion of Marley's official merchandise range. So all of these things are going to be marketed in his name, right? So Della Marley, the singer's eldest child, has already published a children's book called Three Little Birds, based on the anthem of the same name, known as its refrain rather, of don't worry about a thing, because every little thing's gonna be all right. Don't worry, right? About a thing. And he said, every little thing gonna be all right. And you think that it is so, right? You don't have to worry. Just smoke your marijuana, because every little thing gonna be all right. Just be high. What to worry about? Absolutely. So Three Little Birds could be expanded into a range of children's clothes, shoes, and toys, she suggested, right? And the Marley family, of course, will be the major beneficiaries, right? There's already a Bob Marley resort and spa in the Bahamas, which could be the springboard for a string of Marley hotels, right? Miss Marley said yet interest in her father was growing almost 30 years after his death. The things that Dad spoke about are still the things that we all need to fix and work on. right? So that is the things that he spoke about, right? He's God, of course, he's a prophet, right? And we've got to heed the philosophy, right, of Bob Marley, right? Because he gave us wise counselings, and he was, in fact, a prophet for Black people and a social justice prophet, right? What a wonderful guy he was. Now, sometimes when you put on his records, it's like he's talking about today, right now, right? Because the world hasn't changed, has it? You read the newspapers also of yesteryear, particularly in Jamaica, and you realize that the world hasn't changed. So if that was the case, if that was a standard setter, it means therefore that the journalists who have written these papers are also prophets, because the things really, the more they change, the more things remain the same, right? So yeah, the world really has not changed that much. At least our human nature remains the same. This is a big business for bootleggers, said this morning. We want to stop some of the nonsense and make sure the great stuff upholds our standards. We're in control. Asked whether the family had effectively sold a slice of Marley to the private equity firm, his daughter insisted ILCO had become the family's partners to develop and manage the merchandise. Nothing has been sold, she said. And Hilco, if you know, is a private security investment fund on Wall Street, right? Isn't it? So I'll allow you to decide whether or not the family has sold out Bob Marley, and perhaps Bob Marley's prophetic words, right? You will decide that for yourselves, because you have to think. You have to think for yourselves, and you don't want to think. And I know you love not to think, because that is the best way. We can just smoke and be high, and every little thing is going to be all right. Absolutely. Wait for that, because I don't know when that will ever come. Right? I'm not saying you should worry, but you have to be concerned, and you have to also think, right? And because everything in this world is not going to be all right, right? The Bible tells us that we are surrounded by these powerful spiritual beings in high places. And these are not your friends. These are not my friends also. They're there to kill, to steal, and to destroy. So there is not a time in this world whenever the thing's going to be all right, because we are in a war. And if it's not a physical war, we are certainly in a spiritual war, a mental warfare. You are being bombarded with images every day on your television, which is also a war. Which is also a war. And you are not aware of that, because you think, wow, I'm just looking at a movie, and it's innocent. Innocent, indeed. Now, let's look at the article here that was written by Sage. And I have to go through it, so I want to direct you to the article. It's Sage Business Cases, and it's the title of the article is Real Situation, the Mainstream Marketing of Bob Marley. And it was written by Mike Elaine, right? And that the online publication was January 2nd, 2019. So that is not a long time ago, right? Very recent article, right? So this was a Sage business cases, right? I'm not sure if it's a journal. Yeah, seems to be a journal article. Let's get into let's look at the abstract. So we have reggae artist Bob Marley recorded globally popular songs representing the masses exploited by capitalism and colonialism, particularly in small developing nations. His success in protecting explicitly and anti-establishment political and spiritual messages towards mainstream pop audiences, while also receiving critical acclaim, made him a post-colonial icon. However, the complex equilibrium between art and commerce that Marley sought to achieve during his lifetime has been the subject of critical scrutiny since his death. 1981. Following his demise, the marketing of the artist coincident with this increasing economic value appears to have made him a commercial brand rather than a progressive vehicle for ideologies of cultural and political liberation. This case considers the meanings and marketing of Bob Marley and whether the substance of his creative legacy has been sold out in favor of commercial goals, becoming diluted in the process and alienating audiences. So obviously we're seeing here where the abstract is telling us that, yes, he has been marketed and commercialized, right, on to mainstream audiences. That is how they have to do it. And, you know, this is not happening in recent times. Even when not Marcus Garvey, but Bob Marley, even when Bob Marley was alive, he had to be sold and marketed to white audiences in the United States and in Europe. And sometimes they had to change and, you know, adjust things to suit that audience, make the lyrics and the sound of the music a little bit more rock so that the so-called European Americans would be able to adjust to the sound and vibrations of that music. So even in Bob Marley's time, and sometimes you really wonder, perhaps that's one of the reasons that Peter Tosh had to leave, because he saw he was more intelligent of the two, right? Peter Tosh was the more intelligent of the two, and a better songwriter too than Bob Marley was. But Bob Marley was promoted as this hero, this icon, because he was this mixed young man of a mixed race. His father was white and his mother was black, and that would suit an American and European taste, right? And even Black Americans also, if you read the history of entertainment in the United States, and, you know, when Black people from the South particular went into mainstream American entertainment sector, they also had to be sold to that so-called white audience. So this is nothing new if we understand the history of entertainment in the Western Hemisphere. Now, the author opens up by saying reggae, Rastafarianism, and the rise of the Wailers. So he gave the historic, you know, of how the Wailers came into being. I'm not going to read that history. I think you know already, right? And, you know, Bob Marley says that the first album release in Uprising 1980 by reggae artist Bob Marley. And Bob Marley's recording career began in the island, on the island rather, of Jamaica in 1962 with a single Judge Not, just as the country rather claimed independence from centuries of Spanish and then much longer British colonial rule. So the island was first, you know, colonized by the Spanish, right? And then the British came in 1655, and until we were emancipated in 1838 thereabout, and then we got our independence from Great Britain, or so-called independence from Great Britain, on August 6, 1962. Now he's giving here the ska was the era, the ska was in the eras of the 1960s, so it was the sort of first music that Jamaicans produced, really. And then it was followed by they said an up-tempo music from that fused indigenous rhythms with elements of the US R&B to create Jamaica's first original popular music form. And that was from Netta Ford, that's Rex Netta Ford in 1978, when he gave that historic understanding. Now, from the ska, we went to the mento, right? We went to mento, that's the calypso sounded or calypso flavored mento, which was a very folk type of music. Ska metamorphosed into slower rocksteady by the 1960s. So it's interesting that Jamaica had so many different types of music, and they were infused with elements of R&B music, right? So the ska, and then we had, or if you want to call it ska, whatever pronunciation you adhere to. And we also have the mento and the rocksteady, right? The rocksteady was a slower tempo music, and that was also in the mid-60s before reggae came on the scene. So we had the ska, then we had the mento, then we had the rock steady, and the rock steady metamorphosed into what we know today as reggae music, right? Now, one of the things that is saying here, sustained frustration from reached a turning point when the British Jamaican entrepreneur Chris Blackwell, so he's now giving you the history of how, Bob Marley came on the national and international scene, who founded Island Records in 1958. So it's important to know that the person who really popularized and made Bob Marley recognized nationally as well as internationally was Chris Blackwell. And he was a British Jamaican entrepreneur. Now, he signed the Wailers in 1972, providing access to the production, packaging, promotion, and distribution that allowed international audiences to hear the group's potent reggae. So he was the one who promoted uh, Bob Marley and the Wailers. Now, at the time, Peter Tosh was a part of the group, but in 1974, thereabout, I think they separated because Peter Tosh was not happy with the way in which the music was being promoted. Maybe he thought then that the music was being diluted, at least the message that the music should have been disseminated. Right? So, because Peter Tosh was a very intelligent, much more intelligent than Bob. Although the genre encompassed typical romantic subject matter, it was also acutely characterized by social and political commentary influenced by the religious perspectives of the Rastafarian religion, which began in Jamaica in the early 1930s. And this is coming from Allen in 2012. So now the departure of co-founding. Now he's giving now the history of how Peter Tosh left the Bob Marley and the Wailers. So the departure of co-founding group members Bonnie Wailer and Peter Tosh, who both later enjoyed varying degrees of solo success, meant that by 1974, the band became for the first time as Bob Marley and the Wailers. This movement of Marley into the creative spotlight gave the performing unit a clearer marketing identity, which soon produced the 1976 Reggae International Album Chart breakthrough in Rastaman Vibration, a record that achieved gold certification in the United States, where it became the first top 10 reggae LP. In conjunction with intensive global touring, this and the 4 albums that followed made reggae more commercially important and culturally influential. Now, it's interesting to note that it took a British Jamaican who had what you call a phenotypical white, what we believe to be a phenotypical white skin, to be able to promote Bob Marley, rather, on the global stage. It's almost like Black people have to depend, even though we speak a lot of times against the white man, that he is the one who has to promote us on the global stage for us to have any forms of success. Because whether we like it or not, he controls the financial system, the political, financial system of the world. Right? So what sort of Blackness is this white man desirous of portraying to the world? We have to ask ourselves that question. We claim that the white man doesn't like the Black man, so why would he want to promote him? And if he's going to promote him to the world, what aspect of Black culture will he want to promote to the world? And why are we so proud when a white man promotes one of our, our icons to the world? And a lot of times that person is not even an icon until the so-called white man promotes him to the world. This is a paradox that I don't know if I can ever unpack. Now, notably, Marley sold more albums posthumously than during his lifetime, with record label marketing decisions apparently favoring the less revolutionary recordings and visual images of the musician to encourage mainstream consumption of his work. So the more revolutionary music and songs are not the ones that they're promoting. They're promoting Three Little Birds, right? And every little thing is going to be all right. Baby, don't worry about a thing. Just smoke your marijuana, legalize it, smoke it, right? And every little thing afterwards is going to be all right. That is what it's all about. What a wonderful world that would be if we just were able to sit about and smoke marijuana and string a few poems, right? Write a few poems and string a few songs. And every little thing is going to be all right. Great prophetic words by the late icon Bob Marley. Now, let us look at what he has here of making money. Analysis of Bob Marley's career leads to an uncommon intersection of music, money, marketing, and religion. So I must emphasize here, and religion. So they're also promoting religion and spirituality, if you will, for those of you who are so highly spiritual. You're not religious, but you are spiritual, whatever that means, because you yourselves don't know what being spiritual is all about. You don't know, but you're spiritual, aren't you? Because your professor at university has told you that. And you don't have to be religious. All you have to do is to be spiritual. When I used to sit in my PhD classes and I listened to that nonsense, I used to laugh because it didn't make any sense. Did not make any sense at all. But people believed it because they are pliable in deeply historical and political contexts. Typically, discussions of brand relationships often clinically deconstruct the nature of consumer engagement with products employing theoretical models and empirical data, right? And this came from Fournier, Brazil, and Fetcherin, that is 2012. Now, even consideration of reasons why consumers become attached to brands does not fully include the roles of less tangible elements, such as the philosophical content or the sonic characteristics where music is involved. Now, one of the things you have to know when they're promoting things, they're going into literature and the theoretical frameworks, and they're trying to look at psychological tactics and strategies that they can use to control your minds. Because you love branding. You're not going to buy a soap unless, oh, what brand is it? You know, even buying clothes now, you know, particular Black people, they love to know that they are buying a certain designer clothes and it belongs to this brand. You know, I was listening to I was in the States and I went to this mall in Maryland and, you know, two Black females were, you know, they were arguing with each other. And, you know, one of them, you know, her way of humiliating the other said to her that, oh, the blouse that you're wearing, you know, it costs only $20 when what I'm wearing costs over $100. And I'm like, what is that all about? What is the purpose of wearing a blouse or a shirt or shoes? Is to protect your body, right? To cover your body. Right? And these females were arguing about which blouse, you know, had a particular cost. You know, I don't care. In fact, if I can go to a store and the shirt is on sale for $2, I love that. And I probably tell people that I bought this for $2 because it doesn't matter. If it's a nice shirt and it protects my body well, it sits perfectly well on my body, I am fine with that. In fact, I shy away from buying any shirt that is going to cost me over $100. I would shy away from doing that. But because we have lost our self-esteem, we do not regard ourselves. We've got to have national heroes and these brand named products to be able to say that we're somebody. So we have to wear the timber, what do you call it? I don't even know these, whatever. What's the latest fashion? I don't know. I don't keep up with these fashion. I like to dress well, but I'm not keeping up with these fashions. It doesn't matter to me. If it's on sale and I can afford it, I'll buy it. Not because it's the name that it has on attached to that particular clothes or shoes or music, whatever it is. Because I am not going to buy something because a person's name is attached to it and, for a huge sum of money. I am not going to do that. Now, in December 2017, Forbes magazine ranked Bob Marley at number 5 among its annual macabre list of top earning dead celebrities. Right? Celebrities. And they're only celebrities, by the way, because you have made them into celebrities. Just like how you have made your prime ministers and your presidents into celebrities. You scream when you see them, and you go to see them because you think that they're important and that you are less important. Only if we could understand the problems and the frailties of these people, because they're just humans as you are. And I'm not saying that you should not respect your leaders, but you don't make them into celebrities because they are not celebrities. In fact, your prime ministers and your presidents should be your servants. Right? That's what you bring them to office to do. And why should you make a celebrity in terms of a singer or sports star? Why? Because someone is kicking a ball or somebody is running or somebody is, it's ridiculous to know that we're giving millions of dollars to people sometimes who are not even singing anything. And they have no message. At least Bob Marley had some message in his songs. At least he had. But I would not make him into any celebrity. It was his talent. And I say to people, I say, so should we make people who have, for example, penned some of the most beautiful hymns that you can ever, they are just immortal. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. These are hymns that will never go away. The Hallelujah Chorus, some of the most beautiful songs that you can ever imagine. Should we make these people our national heroes? Because they penned such beautiful hymns that are also transformative and way superior to any song that was ever sung by Bob Marley. Should we make them our national heroes? The people who also have penned other wonderful songs and poems and other prose and drama content that we have consumed. But in recent times, we have just made these people who are in Hollywood and who sing New York and you dance and you behave stupidly. Right? What is that nonsense about? Calling out New York. And if you understand the spiritual nature of what these people have to do, and sometimes when they sing, you're literally hearing the demonic sonic elements coming out of their music. But you don't know. You think that these people are just singing and you're watching them, but you don't know the spiritual realm that is also involved in that music. And that it is to indoctrinate you and to mesmerize you and to hypnotize you, but you don't understand. And neither do you want to understand. All you want to do is to say, yes, that person is my hero. I love that person, and that person is my diva. Yeah, and I'm not going to lie to you. Some of these songs are mesmerizing. When you listen to Mariah Carey's music and what's her name? Whitney Houston. And some of these lovely female singers, wonderful music, but they're not going to mesmerize me. I am not going to allow any of these singers to mesmerize me because I understand that many of them are involved in things that I would not want to be involved with. And you would not want your children to be involved with. And when they're involved with them, you sometimes behave. Why? Why have they changed? I trained them up in the fear and the admonition of God, and right now they're taking drugs. And you don't know why. Because what they have coming into the unconscious, when they're listening to these music, there are things, there are messages that are seeping into the unconscious nature of our brains, subconsciously, right? To the subconscious part of our brain. Messages that you and I don't know are actually being infused, right? But you still love them to sing those songs around you. And you are not doing enough research to understand that these music, while they may seem to be unharmful, can be very dangerous. Now, with income, so we're told that the top earning dead celebrities with income amounting to 23 million, that was Bob Marley's Green Machine. So he's among the top, earning dead celebrities. Among musicians, only Michael Jackson, and that's US dollars 75 million, and Elvis Presley, 35 USD million dollars, exceeded Bob Marley's posthumous revenue for that year, reflecting the extent to which his musical empire has become only one component in a marketplace filled with multiple products bearing the artist's likeness and trading on relationships with his songs, such as the positive vibration headphones. So everything is being sold as much as possible with his image and name so that it can be sold, because people are that stupid. If they see Bob Marley on a soap, yeah, I've got to buy it. It's Bob Marley. And I'm not suggesting that you can't buy a Bob Marley shirt, because certainly if I go to a store and I see a Bob Marley a t-shirt or any shirt with the image of Bob Marley, and the shirt is for $1 or very cheap, very reasonably priced, I'm going to buy it. Am I promoting Bob Marley? No, I'm not promoting Bob Marley. I just like the shirt and it fits me well and I wear it. I remember I was wearing a shirt in the United States, and I used to go to college, and I had the Redskins on the shirt. And every time I wore the shirt, people were asking me, "Oh, you're a Redskin fan?" And I'm like, "I don't even know the Redskins." Not interested in anything about the Redskins. But the shirt was nice. It was priced at a very good price, and it fit me well, and it served me a long time too. It was a very good quality. The shirt was of excellent quality. And I wore it for many years in the States, right? But it's not about promoting that nonsense. Now, the significantly improved income during the past decade for the Marley estate is notably due much more to aggressive diversification of his brand in conjunction with wealthy investors than to the sales of Bob Marley's music. So it's because they're promoting it. And it's also linked. It is in conjunction with wealthy investors, right? Bob Marley became famous because he connected himself with famous people, like the guy there, the Chris Blackwell. And that's the only way that he could have been promoted. If not, no matter how beautiful his music is, because Peter Tosh's music also, is beautiful. But because Peter Tosh wasn't connected with these people, then his music is just going to be there to be sung by Jamaicans and people around the world who might know him and like his music. yesterday too, Sydney Breakspear, and for those of you who do not know Sydney Breakspear, as I said, she was a former Miss Jamaica World. She won the Miss Jamaica, the Miss World competition rather, in 1976. And she made a statement yesterday that I thought was interesting. She gave a lecture at the University of the West Indies in Mona campus in Kingston. And Cindy Breakspear is about, she's probably in her 70s right now. But she said that it was in 1976 when she won the Miss World competition for Jamaica that she went to tour on, because after you win the Miss World competition, you have to go on tour. So while she was touring Europe, I think she was in England at the time, that was when the whole article and connection of Bob Marley being connected with her. She was a side chick. She's Damon Marley's mother, and the fact that she was Miss World, she's saying that is how Bob Marley became popular in England and in Europe by extension, because of her image of having won the Miss World competition. Interesting. And that was 1976. So all along, Bob's music was not popular, according to her, before Europe's connection, at least the citizens of Europe's connection with her and Bob's connection, or her connection, I should say, to Bob as a former Miss World. So everything is based on imaging. Everything. Even if what you have, the product that you're selling, is not of any substance or of any quality, once you promote yourself, once you connect yourself with a particular person, it is saleable. And a particular investor decides to invest money, to plow money into your product, it means therefore then yeah, it can be saleable. Right? This is what is happening in our world, and that you got to take stock and don't think that things are just natural, right? And people just love Bob Marley's music because they are, wonderful. That's what you think, or that is what they would like you to believe. And I'm not here suggesting again that Bob Marley's music is not good, or that it doesn't have some good content, some good lyrics. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm here suggesting to you is that if you were to look at other people who have produced music, such as the Peter Toshes and lots of other people in the world, then we should probably make them our national heroes, because they also have lots of other songs, sometimes superior to the lyrics of Bob Marley. Right? But they were not being promoted, or they were not promoted in the same way that in which we have a Bob being promoted. And the same thing, I should say, is true of any career field, right? There are many scientists, many doctors, many lawyers, many educators who might be superior in their domain, but they have never been promoted. Right? They have never been promoted. Marley's songs may have been streamed 1.68 billion times as of January 2018, and that's from Christmas 2018, but with limited revenue derived from digital platforms and physical record sales in the 2000s, the singer's estate has had to consider other means of exploiting Bob Marley's relevance to global audiences. They've had to confront the need to expand revenue streams with product affiliations, endorsements, or joint business ventures. The sale of music to the public immediately creates commodity status. But in the case of Bob Marley and similar sociopolitically oriented artists, the potential for conflict with the commercial realm is ever present. So there is a conflict of interest. Are you going to suppress his message and promote this one love, let's get together and three little birds image of Bob Marley. Because every little thing is gonna be all right. Even when the global elites are stealing from us, every little thing gonna be all right. Baby, don't worry about a thing, because every little thing gonna be all right. And you sing it and you dance and you think that is what it's all about. And you don't understand that you are being controlled. And you are being mesmerized. The odious specter of selling out, fundamentally placing commercial considerations ahead of artistic ones, remains an important consideration, despite a higher tolerance level among audiences and critics than in past decades, since from plain 2010. Such audiences must carefully consider whether financial realities absolve artists, living or not, of all the responsibility for surrendering the higher philosophical associations of their art to the dictates of the marketplace. That's what it's all about, that they really have to eventually, they will have to concede to the marketplace if you want to make some money. And some people just want to make, they just not only, they not only want to make some money, they want to make obscene profits. And that is the problem with our world today. They could survive on the funds generated from the sale of Bob Marley's music. That's the family I'm suggesting here. But there are other forces, there are other financial forces who want obscene profits. And they know that the world loves Bob Marley, and they can make lots of money from his image, using his image, right? A British newspaper article, including an interview with one of Bob Marley's musical performing sons, Damien, commented that, listen what they're commenting, there is a silver of discomfort at how relentlessly his father's image is marketed by his estate, not only the expected 40th anniversary reissue albums and t-shirts, but Bob Marley room spray, Bob Marley lip balm, and Bob Marley mellow mood low-calorie raspberry tea lemonade. Right? So they're doing everything to exploit the image of this poor Rasta man. You know, somebody sent me a response to one of my videos yesterday, and he said that I don't know the origins of Rastafari or Rastafarianism. You know, and my response to him that my knowledge of the origin of Rastafarianism and the Rasta culture in Jamaica is of really no significance. What I do know, or what should be of significance to him, as well as to me, and as well as to you, the viewer, is that his image is being exploited and is controlled by global forces beyond his family and, well, Bob is now dead, control. That is what should be of major concern to me and to you, not the history of Rastafarianism. Yeah, it might be good to talk about it in terms of to know its origin. Of course it is good. And I've read about it. I'm not going to suggest here that I'm an expert on it, but I've read about it. Okay? Now, to understand how this reggae icon's career poses potential contradictions, it is necessary to reflect on contrasts between presentation of his image and artistry during his lifetime versus the posthumous phrase of his commercial presence. From the very outset of the Wailers' involvement with Island Records, their 1973 label debut as an album-oriented group, Catch a Fire, primarily targeted young white rock audiences both visually and orally. Right? So they had to target their audience from the 1970s when Bob was singing. They had to target their audiences, they had to target the music to white audiences, which means that they have to do some adjustments, alterations of the music. Because that is what it is all about. Chris Blackwell was not going to go into the music with Bob Marley if he knew at the time that he was not going to make any money. And big money too. Island head Chris Blackwell's marketing strategy was based on the premise that such listeners would be attracted to the music if it contained packaging and production elements with which they were already familiar. Yeah? So it was not because Jamaica's musical, acumen was great, even though it is great, but it also had to be altered to be able to be sold to a particular audience in North America. And who had the money to do that? So-called European Americans are going to be able to produce his music, to buy his music, and for them, to consume it at the time in terms of financial possession and the financial wherewithal. The flashy Zippo cigarette lighter concept of the album's original jacket conformed to the style of the elaborate rock concept sleeves that had rapidly become standard in the 1970s, enticing potential listeners who might otherwise immediately dismiss the release. Right? Meanwhile, the actual music was infused with rock, guitar, and keyboard stylings and given a less bass-centered, rock-oriented mix because they knew that the audience to which the music was being promoted, they had to do that adjustment. They had to do that adjustment. The same thing happened with our spirituals, the spirituals that were sung from the slaves, or that were written by the slaves and sung by them. They also had to be sanitized, if you will, to suit a particular audience. And the audience, what you call the white audience, right? This is what it's all about. For a long time, Black people have been entertaining the world. It's no different now, right? But oftentimes, we are not the ones who, economically, we get some, the authors might get some money from it, but not to the extent to which these investors are getting the money. Jamaica isn't benefiting from reggae music as it should benefit from reggae music because it doesn't have that power in the world, at least the financial power to do so. It has the cultural capital, a lot of talented people, talented musicians on the island. But it's not going to make us rich because, these guys are about commodifying, commercializing. And if you don't have the money to do it, then you don't have any talk. You just don't have any talk. You don't have any say, as much as you'd like to have Bob Marley as your national hero. It means absolutely nothing. Just a symbol. But you remain poor. And nobody will respect you when you're poor. In contrast to the portrayals of Marley on posthumous releases, only one album cover from the Island Records catalog during his lifetime features a closely cropped, innocuous photo of the smiling face, the 1978 Kaya album. And that's coming from Alain, 2017. And he's the author of this article, by the way. Alternatively, the covers of the posthumous island compilations, that's Legend 1984, Natural Mystic 1995, Dreams of Freedom 1997, Talking Blues 2002, and Africa Unite. The Singles Collection 2005 all provide examples of a neutral, non-threatening tone featuring a smiling Marley. So he's no longer this revolutionary Bob Marley who is standing up for the rights of the downtrodden and the underdogs. Because that's not the way how they would like to portray him. They want him to sing to you that we don't have to think about injustices anymore. Just smoke some marijuana and every little thing is going to be all right. Because you're babies, right? You're babies. Babies don't worry about anything, right? Their parents feed them and clothe them and bathe them, and everything is done for them. All they have to do is to sleep. And I'm suggesting here, ladies and gentlemen, that you are sleeping. The majority of you who are viewing this video today are sleeping. You're fast asleep, and you're expecting that your mother or your father is going to take care of you. This is what the agenda is. This is what it is all about. This dilution of Marley's revolutionary identity, pictorially evident on the Che Guevara style illustration on the 1976 Rastaman Vibration LP cover, is underscored by the content of the Legend album, which is Marley's and reggae's biggest selling release in history, right? So these are things that you have to be mindful of. Now, this is something that is very, very interesting. Why is the Marley House so willing to commercialize Bob Marley? Why are his children doing that? You might ask, because people ask me, oh, but when I spoke about the commercialization of the biopic movie, right? They said to me, but Andrew, the Ziggy Marley is involved in it. He and his other brother are the producers. Are they? They are the face of it. But do you think they have all the money to be behind all of that? And perhaps they do have some connections. Yes. But we have to think beyond what we're seeing and look deeper at what we are not seeing. Right? That is the essence of critical thinking. Now, legal landscape. Another crucial component in comprehending the commercialization of Marley's legacy is the protracted series of lawsuits following his death. So there was a protracted series of lawsuits after Bob Marley died. Because Bob or Marley had not made a will, legal procedures, which continued until 1991, determined ownership of his estate and assets. So that was up for grabs. He had not made any will prior to his death. Remember now, Bob Marley died at 36. And how many of us at 36, don't feel that we are invincible? And can you imagine at a time when he was so famous, he was a megastar, right? At the time of his death, even though he died very young. So he must have thought that he was invisible and that he wasn't going to die anytime soon. Right? Well, which of us think we're going to die in your 20s and 30s? Many of us don't make a will during that time. But it could be also that Marley, because he was a Rastafarian, never thought that that was necessary. I don't know the reason why, but that's not for me to know. The fact of the matter is that he just did not make a will, and when he died, I'm sure there were many claims, because remember, Marley had lots of children around the world, and he had lots of different females, love affairs around the world. He was a highly sought after man. He was saleable, not for monetary thing, but for his image on the world. All women wanted to sleep with Bob. As I told you, what's her name? Rita Marley, his wife, said that she had sometimes to go to his room because on their tours, they did not sleep in the same room. He slept in one room and she slept in another. And she would see literally women going to his room as his wife. And she was not empowered to do anything about it. No, this is your national hero now, or your want to be national hero. And some of you women are out there, you're so hypocritical because if any woman should do that to your husband, I think it would not be night and day. You'd be going to fight and you would do some ridiculous things because of the hurt, the emotional hurt. The emotional and psychological hurt that would have created for many females. But yet still, they are some of the great defenders of Bob Marley becoming a national hero. Even, some of these dancehall songs and hip-hop songs, disgracefully denigrating women. And they are the greatest defenders of, Shabba, shred a load of girls. And you dance and you think that that is promoting and enhancing your female image or the image of a female. And you speak against when men disrespect you. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. And you want to sue them because they said something that should not have been said. But when your megastar, at least when the white man puts up your megastar on the platform, on the world stage, onto the world stage, you dance and you carry on because you're stupid. Right? And this is the double standard that we see in our society. When you look at Sydney Breakspear too, if she was an ordinary black ghetto woman in Jamaica, and she had done that, let us say that Bob had slept with that black poor ghetto woman, and this black poor ghetto woman would be on many interviews saying that she was proud to have been with Bob. Many of you would have classed her as this poor and she's a terrible woman and all of the unkindly words that you would have launched and you'd have hurled at her. But you have Sydney Breakspear, right? This lady who is of a white Jamaican father and a white Canadian mother. You decide that, okay, it's okay. She's intelligent. What a wonderful example for Jamaica's, female population. She's an excellent example because she is who she is, a former Miss World. So yeah, it softens anything that she does. This is the hypocrisy of the human race, and you've got to call it out. And I'm not saying here that we can't make mistakes. I'm not saying that, and I hope you understand that. But when you make a mistake, you have to say it was a mistake. And Sydney Breakspear at this juncture of the history has not said that her, what you call now, relationship with Bob Marley was a mistake. In fact, she glorifies that relationship. Right? She glorifies it, as many of you women would do. But when another woman dares to even touch your husband, you want to kill him or to kill that woman. Now, what are you thinking? What's in the head? What on God's earth is in that brain? I would like to see. Now, let's continue here, because so we see now here that Bob Marley's estate was up for grabs, right? Because he had not made a will. So they had to defend it. The family members would have to defend it. It is also realistically conceivable that such costs for the preceding years might be similar. In addition, the Marley family was only able to claim legal ownership of the estate after making a successful joint bid with Chris Blackwell's Island Logic Music Company. Right? That's how they were able to do it with the British Jamaican entrepreneur. That is sad. The combined bid totaled US dollar 11.5 million. Wow. To be able to defend his estate, and was made amidst competitive offers. The major rival bid was submitted by MCA, which ironically, like Ireland, later became part of the Universal Music family of labels. Even with the enormous future earning potential, the fulfilled substance of which is at the center of this analysis, Marley's heirs were placed in a state of financial deficit by the prolonged legal battles, right? That is why they have to make sure they sell him so that they can override the cost of what they had to spend to defend his interest, his estate, his legacy. Now, when you think about it, in 1991, even now in 2024, $11.5 million are is a lot of money. So can you imagine in 1991, that 11.5 million would have been a lot of money, right? A lot of money for them to have to defend their father's interests and his legacy. Something that you need to, and I would tell you to get a copy. I would recommend that you get a copy of this article and read it. It's online. Real Situation, the Mainstream Marketing of Bob Marley. And it can be found, as I said, in the Sage Business Spaces. Just go online and read it. Because I'm not going to read everything to you, right? Because you need to do your own research, and you need to understand that lots of what you're seeing in the media is not necessarily so. And it might be some half-truths to what they're saying, but as I've told you on many occasions, half-truths are also lies. Because they're not giving you the full story, they're diluting the full story, they are adulterating the full story, and you believe them because they are the facts, right? Because they're coming from New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, BBC News. Yeah, the facts are there. And you are comfortable that you've got all the facts. Now, let's end here by materialism and the mystic messenger. The overall profits accruing to the Marley's family from the sale of merchandise and other secondary items amounts to an estimated 10% to 15% of revenue from gross income that was expected to exceed US dollar 1 billion globally by 2012. Wow. So can you imagine now how much that they are profiting from the sale of the products that they are selling in his name, right? Claims from family members that the Marley Natural Cannabis enterprise would meet with Bob Marley's approval have been met with cynicism from many critics familiar with the singer's legacies and the international cultural influence of Jamaica. Thompson and Stalewitz, I can't pronounce his name, dismiss a further move towards the Disneyfication rather, of all matters Marley, right? Noting that the commercial contexts fuel mainstream mythologies. Island Records transformed him into a semi-divine. Okay, let me sit up and read this properly to you so that you can understand. Because sometimes I get the impression that if you could only reach me, if you could only crush me through the video here, the screen, you would have done so. Because you do not have the requisite skills to think. Right? So let me read this. Island Records, right, which is owned by Chris Blackwell, the British Jamaican entrepreneur. Island Records transformed him, Bob Marley, into a semi, however you want to pronounce it, divine rock star for a mostly white audience. Today, that same audience will be able to buy bottles of reggae skin moisturizer, cream extracted from Bob Marley's cannabis fiber oil. And now these gimmicky, ganja-infused mass market products. That's what it's all about. He has been sold to a white audience, a predominantly white audience, I should say, that worship him and see him as a semi-divine character. Right? He's a prophet. I don't know if you can listen to Bob Marley's music and say that he's a prophet. I don't know. What has he prophesied? Tell me. Tell me something that Bob Marley has prophesied that nobody else ever prophesied. Tell me something. I have not listened to all of his music, so I should have to concede here that I have not listened to all of his music. And I'm not a great listener to his music anyway. I mean, I've heard some of them. And I think the Emancipate Yourself from Mental Slavery song, the Old Pirate song, is a wonderful song. Because we do need to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. And it's not only Black people, but all the peoples of the world need to emancipate themselves, or ourselves, I should say, because I should include myself also, from mental slavery. The only separation I make, I don't think we can ever free our minds by what we do. I think only with the help of God can we free our minds. We need a higher being, a higher power to be able to liberate us from the things, from the vices that we are so attached to, and the human propensities that we often find ourselves engaged in. Right? This is the difference between Bob and myself. It's very important that we understand that the music industry is an industry that seeks to commodify everything. Right? It has commodified women, men, education, just about anything in its reach. It will commodify and has already commodified. Right? And you've got to understand that. But one of the things that is very, very dangerous right now as I speak is the fact that you do not understand that. The slaves understood that they were slaves because, they were chained and people were beating them physically. They got physical lashes, whips on their backs. And they had the bruises to show. Our bruises are psychological and emotional, social, and in some cases cultural. But they are not tangible. They can't be seen. And that is why this is an effective war. And the strategies, the psychological, the emotional, the cultural tactics that they use against us in this warfare, right, are so effective. And the music is a powerful tool through which they will do it. And notice here in the article it mentioned about Bob Marley. I've always seen Marcus Garvey, but it's Bob Marley's, in his music, you have also religious messages. Because music was made to enhance worship. Right? No matter what song you sing, you are worshiping some spiritual being that you yourself and I too sometimes do not even know. And that's why it's very important that we understand what happens behind the scenes sometimes in these industries. Study, follow the money. Look at Hollywood, look at what it does, what it's involved with. And some of you go to these movies theaters and you think it's innocent. And you're watching these movies. But that's not for me to talk about at this one. I just wanted to highlight the commodification of Bob Marley. And hopefully you have gleaned something from this presentation. Thank you so much for joining today, and I look forward to seeing you in another chat. So take care. All the best. Bye.